Hey everybody, this is Mark Levine, and you're listening to episode number 5 of the NYC Real Estate Podcast. I'm from property management firm EBMG, and today we have a few representatives from Merritt Engineering, one of New York City's leading engineering firms, to talk about the Climate Mobilization Act, as well as general energy savings topics pertaining to buildings in New York City. And today, actually in the studio, I have Paul Gurdak and Heather Cerone. Hey guys.
Hi.
Hello.
And on the phone, I have Mario Cirigliano, one of the vice presidents of Merritt Engineering. Hey, Mario.
How are you?
Good. Everybody's doing well. So you want to give us a background on Merritt Engineering and what you guys are currently tackling in the New York City area?
Sure. Merritt Engineering was established back in 1986 by our principal, Charles A. Merritt. Over the years, we've become a leading engineering firm that specializes in building restoration and waterproofing work throughout the tri-state area. Some of our clients currently, we basically cover commercial, multifamily, healthcare, educational, and public facilities. And in addition to that, we recently added an MEP division as well, which covers HVAC replacement, boiler replacement, and analysis.
And that's actually really important for new construction because we're seeing a lot of really high-end systems in a lot of these new condos and high-end buildings. And even you wouldn't expect in a few years that they would go, but depending on what was put in by the developer, I think the MEP program is pretty important.
Exactly. And over the years, we've learned that in order to stay within the industry standards, we'd have to diversify. So we started the division roughly about 3 years ago.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. And let me just point out to everybody at home that if you want to email us, you can do so. Email the show at nycrealestatepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's nycrealestatepodcast@gmail.com. Any questions that come through, we will certainly answer them in the future. So what we really wanted to bring you guys in, Paul and Heather and Mario, was to talk about the Climate Mobilization Act. So what we're seeing is greenhouse gas initiatives and otherwise just cleaner, more energy efficient buildings, right? In the city of New York, that's what they're really coming towards us with now.
That's the goal.
Yeah. So what is this, the Climate Mobilization Act? What is it doing for us and for the buildings that we manage?
Well, it's an act it's been established quite some time ago. 2000, just jumping back a little bit, 2008, Europe was the sort of leader in getting the energy organized. And then 2018, our city finally picked up the act a bit earlier and began mobilizing to create teams tackling these issues, carbon emissions, energy. I always say the energy vampires, those big buildings, and then obviously water consumption and energy consumption in general.
So what we've been doing in the past few years, it started with Local Law 84, and that was a yearly initiative where we had to, for buildings that were greater than 50,000 square feet, benchmark, not a total benchmark, but submit our energy and water usage to the city. And not too long ago, it was Local Law 133 that came out, and it said we are shrinking the size from 50,000 square feet to 25,000 square feet. And I was always wondering, what are they going to do with this information? How are they archiving this? Why? And now I think we kind of are seeing that. And what this is telling us now, the Climate Mobilization Act, is that buildings larger than 25,000 square feet, which is our lowest filing right now, must reduce their emissions by 40% by 2030 and by 80% by 2050. And these are huge deals, right?
Yes, those are benchmarks and preliminarily established against 2005 data, but that can change anytime. It's not fully established yet. The basic incentive of 33 and Local Law 33 and 133 is basically digitizing all the data and right. getting all the data available to all customers. 25,000 square feet is not the benchmark, but we can expect to see new legislations issued for all buildings.
No matter if it's 6,000
it doesn't matter. Right now, houses of worships, city-owned buildings.
Convenient.
Not leased buildings. So
Yeah.
if the city leases a space, they still have to comply. Landmark buildings and
but I do love that the city comes and they make a rule and they say, but it's not relevant to our buildings.
Yeah, that's unfortunately but to give a credit, they do have an internal battle, and they have to follow their own standards. They,
Right.
I
get it.
They procrastinate against.
Do you
themselves.
guys do Local Law 87, the big filings in house, or is that not something that you guys touch upon?
No, but it's an interesting aspect of he's seeing owners sort of battling this issue and constantly saying, well, why do we have to do this? Why do we have to replace? Why do we have to continuously upgrade the windows? Why do we have to upgrade this? Why can we just?
Yeah.
So it's the owners are frustrated.
Yeah.
Because there is issue of finances, obviously, money available to do the reconstructions necessary to meet the goals. Retrofitting, gut renovations. But frankly, I try to attend as many meetings as possible and go to these seminars, and hearing the Department of Buildings and other agencies, you kind of get an idea that it's coming for all buildings, not just the 3 stories and up, not just the 25,000 square feet. So we're, right now we're looking at mechanical systems. I mean, engineers and architects in general. Offices are looking at building systems in general. Those are the primary sort of function to upgrade.
Is that kind of hand in hand with your MEP department now?
More or less, yeah. And we can see that in the private sector as well. So we do a lot of private bank institutions and so, we can see the improvement in mechanical systems. The energy efficiency ratios are going up. The refrigerant types, the products, the specifications, it's all being upgraded.
Yeah. Our video feed cut out. I don't know why, but we'll keep this going for audio no matter what. It's fine. I'll worry about that later.
Yes.
So for Local Law 87, for people that are listening, I guess it's important for them to know that if you are over 50,000 square feet, it's a 10-year program. Every 10 years, you have to do the filing, and the way that you figure out when you need to file is the last digit of your block number. So if your block ends in 1, then you're up in 20, 21, 31, 41, 51. So it's a really easy way to look at it.
Yes.
But we've also seen the city take other initiatives, and going forward with oil, there's a push towards cleaner burning fuels. There's a push towards just saving energy in general. So a few years ago, they outlawed number 6 oil. And then they're also saying that number 4 oil will be outlawed by 2030. And if there's any boilers that are going to be installed that are running on number 4, they're not going to approve that past a certain time that's close to that 2030 point. And also promoting the NYC cool roofs is a big thing for them too. And just generally changing the energy codes throughout the city to be more efficient. And I think for new construction, there was a new law that de Blasio was pushing. I don't know if it went into law, if it was just a proposed change where the new construction can't be all glass, or it had to be energy efficient to block out the energy inefficiency and the overheating and all that.
Funny enough, I did come across the article in New York Times. It's something that de Blasio is working hard on, I believe, and it makes sense again. We see a lot of skyscrapers, and if you're familiar with glass and the U values and the R values conversion, you're not getting a lot of thermal performance out of the. Obviously, we have some technical specs on the glass, but beyond the point, there needs to be some mass, some thermal mass, and to improve the overall performance of the building.
So what would we say greenhouse gas emissions are? We're looking to limit them, but what are they made of?
Well, carbon is number one, and obviously it goes into the entire spectrum of construction industry. I mean, looking across the 21% transportation in U.S. carbon emissions, you're talking about electrical water usage of about 23%, and then you're looking at buildings, that's like 12%. Mm-hmm. So we're only focusing on the 12% out of that 80% that we're talking about. All other industry are being affected. So essentially, the product manufacturers now have to establish criteria to meet the performance, to declare the products, to make sure everything is transparent.
Right.
There's a lot going on. It's not just the particular.
So it's anything that's basically being trapped in the atmosphere, not allowing the. It's holding the heat in the atmosphere.
Correct. I mean, we think about carbon as being the element, the chemical element holding the heat. in the atmosphere, but really it's the actual production of the different industries that cause the carbon. And it doesn't have to be carbon. There's other chemicals
Right.
that combined.
It's any gaseous compound.
Correct. There's
Okay.
a lot of them. Yeah.
And it's coming from electricity, and it's coming from heating, and it's coming from cooling.
Comes from
Cars, I'd imagine.
Absolutely.
Big one.
Transportation's the biggest one. Buildings, obviously, another big one.
Yes, a fun fact about that, 71% of the gas emissions come from our buildings.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Out of the 12% of the entire US,
Wow.
which is in the EPA website.
Yeah.
So we can do a lot to improve that.
Right. And that's what we're doing. I guess they're making us do it.
Yes.
Yeah. So 2025 is the compliance date that all buildings that are in this, we're saying 25,000 square feet and up right now.
Yes.
I would imagine we have 6 years to go. It's going to change to all buildings, or to buildings. I could see it 10,000 square feet. It's a sliding downward thing, but they have to show a report about their carbon emissions in 2024, the year prior. So is this in addition to the local law 133 filing? That's the yearly. It's two different things, right? One is the carbon emissions, which is what we're talking about now.
Right.
And then local law 133 would be the energy usage,
Right.
which is, I guess, a different platform.
They're all stringing together
Yeah.
in
Same
some way.
goal.
Yeah, the same goal. Well, in a sense, one is really meant to, and I confused them, but one is really meant to tackle the performance criteria and display the criteria. So the building will be given a letter grade based on the efficiency, and if you don't comply, if you don't submit. Actually, there's a quarterly submission, so it's in August, if I recall correctly, September, February, and I think in May. And so you submit through a website, through Energy Star website. There's a template.
Right.
I've actually used it myself.
Yeah.
And there's a template. You literally fill out the information and you submit it to the city, and then they benchmark it. And they say, well, you're below. So if you're below, what do you do? You have to meet the performance. They give you some. I'm sure you'll have some time to improve the performance. If you don't submit, it's $500 per
quarter.
per quarter. So it's
Okay.
up to $2,000, which makes up the
Yeah.
4 quarters, and then the $268 penalty for not meeting the energy.
And the $268 penalty, it's calculated by multiplying your emissions overages by that number. So it's not just 268; it's 268 times whatever
Correct.
factor of
Yes.
emissions.
Yes, it's getting there.
So we don't know. You could be at 10,000. For very inefficient buildings, you're going to be paying a lot of money to be inefficient.
think they will set a cap. I think there will
hope
be a
so.
cap. Yeah, I hope so.
And how do we as owners take the steps to comply with this? What we have to gather, I guess, the building information, right?
Right.
And what information am I, as the building owner, the manager, the building owner, somebody that's responsible? What am I gathering? How do I gather that?
Well, there's some simple techniques. First of all, I mean, if it's a residential building and not a co-op, not a condo, so not every owner has his own mechanical system or independent systems. You can balance and get the data out of the utility companies, and also your own maintenance crew to get the data, and then sort of benchmark that and track it. Have a system or way to be able to, there's simple ways to do it via simple software, and more complicated ways, or complex, however you want to call it. Do
you think that's something that a company like us could do on our own, or do we have to get a third party like you guys involved?
Funny you say that, because there's so many companies now. All of a sudden, you get this market niche of individuals and companies coming up with this new software. We can do your benchmarking, and we can do this, and we can do your energy analysis, and we can do. So it's going to grow in multiple different ways.
Yeah.
There's going to be a new platform for growth, new development in this particular field, architecture, engineering, and energy, I think. And, again, as owners, you can really just take the data, understand what you're dealing with, look at against the data that you've had years ago, and see how much you're really using. Now, this could be a simple math. It could be more difficult, but these tools on the EPA and the Energy Start website, they're fairly simple. So that would be the first source to go to nyc.gov and then look up the Energy Star, and then look at the template and see how it needs to work. And obviously, the number 2 thing is really getting familiar with the data and know how to improve the data, and that's where engineering and architecture companies come in.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we have to hire an engineer, and then we have to file a report with the city through the Energy Star interface, probably.
Yeah, I think that's not clear. I'm not sure. I think that's not clear. It just says that the data has to be submitted through this particular website with the particular template. The issue with most owners don't know how to deal with improving the performance of the building.
Right.
I mean, obviously, some of the things that we've listed in our article are what was that, Heather? We had the thermostats, right? Replacing thermostat, mechanical systems. I mean, basic things like insulating the envelope of the building, replacing windows with energy, more performing energy and windows.
The thermostats and the lighting is obviously
Right.
the easier things, and then there's the building envelope issues that will also save you
Right.
a ton, but that's a little bit more costly.
Right.
So you can, generally we see owners, the first thing they say, all right, well, we got to get the lighting done, and then
The low-hanging fruit.
absolutely,
Yeah. And that has a specific payback period that you could quantify.
oh yes,
I don't know if you
absolutely.
could quantify insulating the exterior, how long the payback would be.
Try us.
Yeah?
Yes, you can actually.
We'll make it work.
Is that
Yeah.
a challenge?
Yes.
Okay.
You can. There's ways to handle that through software and through other means of energy performance.
So you could give us a rundown of all the inefficiencies in the building,
Even
how we should
Yes.
upgrade them, what the payoff period
Absolutely.
would be, how much it'll cost.
yeah, even through envelope.
Oh, that's pretty impressive. If the building can't afford it, I guess New York City, as of now, they have what's called the Property Assessed Clean Energy program, and it's called, I guess, it's PACE, a financing mechanism that is going to enable energy efficient and renewable energy projects to receive long-term financing for little to no money down. So presumably, more building owners will be able to make the alterations required to reduce greenhouse gas emissions citywide, but we don't know yet if there's going to be any income level requirements, low income level, I could imagine that this would be maybe if you have rent stabilized apartments in the building, if you have anything that's not market rate, if
Right.
you're a low income like HDFC, where you've gotten government subsidies in the past. But I don't know if they're going to, or like the J51 program for upgrading your capital, improvements, they have a limit of an assessed value, and maybe that's how they'll do it too. Maybe it's a combination of everything.
Right. Well, actually, it's funny you mentioned rent control apartments are not subject.
Okay.
I believe, and there's a ratio, but it's somewhere on the website. Another article that I read that these are not subject to the same requirements, so that might follow a different set of rules. And also, apartment units with combination of less than 2 apartments.
Right, because that's not considered a multifamily building.
Correct,
It's
exactly.
3 or
Once you
more.
hit multifamily, and obviously then you're getting into the commercial sector, not the residential.
I
Right.
believe the healthcare facilities have a different set of rules too, so it's kind
Absolutely.
of varying. Yeah.
Actually, hospitals are one of the biggest energy vampires,
I believe it.
and so they have to come up with their own plan on how to improve the energy performance without compromising on the MRI equipment and the X-rays and all that. So that's also a tricky part.
So let's talk about other local laws that are affecting energy, like Local Law 33, which we're in 2019, so that's starting in 2020, and that's for buildings, again, greater than 25,000 square feet. They're going to now be required to post letter grades in a visible place in the building. So it's like going to that Chinese restaurant down the block and you see the C and you're like, maybe we'll go somewhere else.
I only eat in A's. So.
Whoa.
Most people I know will turn down B's.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's still you don't have the data right there, what caused the B.
I think it's funny. Well, now that you say that, I think it's one of those. I think the letter grading is really for the city to sort of drop by and say, hey, okay, well that one's good to see. Let's stop by and see how they're doing with
Right.
the performance. And
Yeah.
so, if the A is there, chances are the buildings are doing a good job. And
Right.
so,
And it's pretty wide. I mean, there's 6 different grades. So you could get a grade A, which means you're 90 or above.
yes.
B is a huge difference.
Range,
It's
yes.
50 to 89. So you could be 51 or you could be 89 and you're in the same boat. I
Yes.
don't know how that works, but C, you're at 20 to 49. D, you're at 0 to 19. If you get an F, that means that the building didn't submit. And if you're an N, the building is exempt or not covered. And
Yes.
I guess it's important to also say that the city can also perform spot audits to ensure that the building's being truthful in their reporting, which is what you said. If it's an A building,
Yeah.
and then you go in and there's air leaking everywhere and things aren't wrapped and you look to be inefficient, and through whatever spot check, they can see that.
Yeah.
So what else can we do to lower emissions in buildings that you could think of, like solar,
Yeah.
roof plantings?
It's we've that's an interesting subject. Sustainable energy is obviously something that we've always should pursue. Although with the footprint that we have available, especially on existing buildings, it's almost impossible. I mean, with the certain square footage of solar panels on the roof, I mean, you're offsetting a very, very minor percentage of the energy. So the really getting the building to seal the building properly is one of the biggest issues. Air infiltration. That's why it's getting
Right.
quite tricky to do that. But
Like when you're in the building and the elevator door is open and like
right.
that wind tunnel, the stack effect, just the air is going everywhere.
Well, that could be one that could be a purge system or maybe some other ways to handle. But in general, I think there, in your apartments, obviously your windows have to be sealed properly. But the other issue is also purchasing green energy. So that's something you could always buy your energy from a more sustainable source. And
Would you consider biofuel green energy, or are we talking about something else? Are we talking about energy that from a generator that was sold back to the grid?
basically, so you have obviously Con Ed has or Guideline is a little different, but Con Ed in general sells the energy through multiple means, and
Right.
obviously we have the power plants, we have the nuclear plants, we have coals, we still have all these different things, and we have sustainable. And so the sustainable, the more people purchase the energy from that sector, and it's literally just becoming,
Yeah.
it's just a bill. It literally look at the bill. You're buying it from a different source, but the provider is the same.
Right.
But you're just getting it from a different source. So
Like an ESCO.
almost like that, yeah.
Yeah.
So essentially, you're supporting that. Could be a little more money, could be a little less, but you're supporting that sector, and that grows, and basically, it helps. But that's the other one. Other than that, I really
White roofs, painting our roofs white. Well, that
cool roofs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Michael Bloomberg. I think that he came up with that. He signed that into law, I think. And white roofs are. I don't know. I came across another interesting technical fact is that the ambient temperature just directly above the white roof is indeed lower, but if you're just 36 inches above the roof, you're looking at the same temperatures. So,
but will it help the top floor?
Certainly, right?
Right below the roof, will that help to?
Yeah, obviously you have some. Well, actually, now that you say, a lot of owners who put solar panels on their roofs because you're reflecting or you're shading the roof, the actual roof membrane. There's less radiation of heat into the building, and obviously, buildings that are less have lower insulation values of all the roofs. You're obviously getting a lot of heat through the first floors, and then you have to pump that AC to get the heat out. And then that goes same for the facades. I mean, most of our old buildings are not insulated. It's just brick and plaster.
Yeah,
And that's basically what you and some framing.
Well, cool. Did you think that we missed anything, or did we cover most of this program?
I think it's a subject that will will grow, and it's just being aware. I think owners just need to be a little more aware and really plan and make a plan, and not just sort of wake up one day and say, oh my gosh, what am I doing?
Well, we have 10 years now to plan for 2030.
Right. So it sounds like a long time, but if you...
It's not.
No.
Yeah.
And
No,
just
it's
simply
not.
starting with gathering the information like we had discussed before is the easiest way to just begin.
Yeah.
Getting the utilities, gathering your information, having it ready.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, because I can't imagine cutting it by 80% by 2050 for some of these buildings. That's a stretch.
Yeah, it is. It may change. Again,
Yeah.
the city council ultimately will make a decision one way or another, but right now it is the law, and so...
I appreciate it. Well, I want to thank Mario on the phone. Are you still there?
Yeah, still here.
All right. You have anything to add, sir?
No, I think Paul covered it all.
All right, cool. So,
See what happens over the next couple of years, but it'll be interesting how this manifests.
yeah. And it's just a waiting game, I think, as with anything else, to see how they're going to actually implement. I think they make a lot of laws with a great hope of implementing it in certain ways, but they don't really put the path forward on how to do it so well. So we'll keep an eye on it, and I'm sure you guys will keep an eye on it.
Yes.
Well, thank you. So we've got Paul here, we've got Heather, we've got Mary on the phone. And how do we reach out to you? We could call you on the phone at 718-767-0923, and also at Merritt, that's 2 R's and 2 T's, merrittengineering.com. And again, if you want to email the podcast, you can do so at nycrealestatepodcast@gmail.com. I'm Mark Levine. Check out our management company, EBMG, at ebmg.com and at EBMG LLC. And thank you guys for coming in.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Until next time.
Alrighty.
Take care.
Thank you.